Hi. So this is a video that I never thought I would make, but here's why I am. This last week, for some reason, my son decided that The Good Dinosaur was suddenly a movie he was very interested in, and I have now watched this movie more times than I ever thought I would in my life. And I have formed some opinions about it because of all these viewings I have had this last week. I came away with two big things, which are complaints, two big issues that I have with this movie. I do have several compliments, which I will make sure to include a little bit later, but I really want to get these two things out real quick because they are very bothersome. My first biggest problem with this movie has to do with the visuals. The environments and the world that they created is so hyper realistic. It's amazing. The amount of detail they were able to get into this movie is gorgeous and stunning, and it's almost distracting just how detailed it is. But I have a problem with that because the characters, the dinosaurs, are so cartoony, and it clashes really bad in my opinion and is incredibly distracting. Like, Arlo and the other characters look like they just walked off the page of a cartoon and are stuck into this hyper-realistic world, and it's just so jarring and I cannot get over it. Like, that is not how eyes function. They would be bumping into each other inside of his skull. He looks like a cartoon. And especially with just how simplified and bulbous his whole body is, like he doesn't have ears. He's just so simplified, and it clashes with the photorealistic environment, and that's very distracting and it bothers me a lot, enough so that it is worth mentioning. My second biggest problem is being able to connect with the characters. And here's why this is a problem for me. They've set it up so that you are obviously supposed to relate with the dinosaurs, with Arlo and his family and the other dinosaurs, because they are the ones who have evolved. They are the, more superior intellectual species in this scenario, and the humans are the, we're cavemen at this point and we're dumb and we have not evolved yet. And so I feel like I am supposed to connect to the dinosaurs to a certain degree. But the problem is, I am in fact a human. And so I unintentionally connect and relate to Spot, the human character. And I don't do it intentionally, but it just happens. I can't help it. And so what is really hard for me is I'll see Spot doing things that I actually kind of relate with, right? Like, he's doing human-y things that I'm like, oh, okay, like, I would do that. I feel that. I understand where he's coming from or what he's doing, his motivations. I get it. And then he will suddenly do something that is very much something I wouldn't do, something that is much more what an animal or primitive person would do. And so I'm just so confused about who I'm supposed to relate to and who I'm supposed to care about and how to feel. And so the whole movie I just feel confused. Something I think they coulda, shoulda done in regards to Spot to kind of help the problem of me relating to him too badly is changing his appearance to look a little bit more primitive, because the design that they went with for his face is so like what we see today, big round eyes, big round cheeks, and just something that looks very familiar to us nowadays when it comes to 3D animated children. I think it really would have helped if they had, put his eyes farther apart or made his face a little more angular, maybe put his body proportions a little bit differently than what we are today. But he looks so similar to us that it's just too relatable. I wish that they had made his design a little bit more out there and bizarre, so I didn't connect and relate to it so much. So those are two of my biggest problems. This movie, on paper, makes a lot of sense, because I think that this is a very interesting concept. Like, I like the idea, and I think on paper it works really well. But as soon as you try to express it visually and make it work in movie form, I don't think it comes together well, and I don't think it works. I will give credit to them, though, for the creativity. Like the concept that these are more advanced creatures and they realize, they can farm, they have to fend for themselves, and how they creatively come up with that environment and those scenarios in which they're able to provide for themselves. And another thing that I think is fun is how they made the T-Rexes, the predators, like ranchers. I think that's a really creative way to handle having a creature that is usually depicted as being, mindless and savage, having them, evolve and be more sophisticated, making them into ranchers. I think that's very clever. Something I'm torn on is how they decided to make them look and act like cowboys, how like they kind of gallop when they run. Like the first couple times you see that, you like it, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But then after watching it so many times, it just starts to not make sense. Like, why are they running like that? I'm so sure that's not the most effective way to run. And like, they'll do it for a little while, but then they will just suddenly stop and start walking normal again once the cowboy music stops. So it's like, it's so creative, but I just feel like it doesn't quite come together, and I find that quite annoying. Here's my compliment though. Pixar is known for their amazing ability to tell story with very few or no words, right? Show, don't tell. And this movie, like a lot of their movies, has a character that doesn't talk. And so therefore they are forced to have him communicate through actions, through the cinematography and through other means, and that actually can create much stronger connections than just words. There's one scene that is just a masterpiece to me, and it gets me every time. And it's when they learn about each other's families. There are no words spoken, but it's so powerful. When you watch Arlo set up each of his family members, and Spot understands, does the same thing, and then just watching them push down the family members that have passed and covering them up is so heartbreaking, and it gets me every time. I will start crying. It's just such brilliant storytelling to be able to convey that message with no words, but it still hits you in the heart. I love that scene, and it's one of my favorite scenes that Pixar has ever come out with. I'm so grateful for it. So it's kind of a bummer to me that it's in a movie that I don't really care for. And it's interesting because I am a pretty emotional person. I can get weepy pretty quickly. But at the end of this movie, like when Arlo lets go of Spot and Spot goes with a new family, it's supposed to be so touching and emotional and powerful, and it is, but for some reason it doesn't make me cry, which it should, because Pixar movies make me cry. And honestly, I can't really put my finger on why, because it's executed beautifully. They're parting and Arlo drawing the circle around the new family, which we've seen executed so powerfully earlier on. It should be so special and emotional, and for some reason it just doesn't hit me. I don't know, I feel bad that I don't cry. Another compliment that I'll throw out at it is its message. I do like the message of it, of, it's okay to be afraid, but it's so important to be able to overcome that and work through problems, even though you might be scared. It's a great message, which comes through very clearly.
Listen, kid, you can't get rid of fear. It's like Mother Nature. You can't beat her or outrun her, but you can get through it. You can find out what you're made of.
So I do like that. I like the message of this movie. I'll stop there. So this video here is just a few of my thoughts on this movie that I have now watched so many more times than I ever thought I would. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.